This is Kyle McCord, and you're listening to Austin, Felix, and Matt on the Devy Debate.
Welcome to the Devy Debate. All right, boys. Are we ready to debate? Austin, you tweeted something, girl. You tweeted your running back tonight, James. Explain yourself.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast. Who jumped up and...
That's Austin Nace.
Who is going to be that guy? And for me, Bijan Robinson is still going to be that guy.
Back to the ground with Robinson, who spins and then tries to bounce it. A stiff arm, another one as he rides it, keeps his balance. They're going to say stepped out, but up.
I'm Felix Sharp. I know you didn't think that we would get through this episode without mentioning the name one Zach F. Wilson.
Screener draw. Oh, Wilson is going to uncork for the end zone, and he drops it in beautifully. And it is his roommate Dax Milne on the touchdown.
That's Matt Bruning.
G. Scott Jr. Obviously, I waxed poetic about him on the last episode, so I won't do that again here.
And this time it's Fields on the carry. Watch out! Justin Fields! Hello, Columbus! 51 yards!
Bruning, are you ready to go head-to-head with me?
I am.
Got to get my popcorn out here. Hold on.
Got to continue. I got it. Kyle McCord is going to end up winning the job. He's going to be rated higher.
Well, I'm not nearly as passionate about what I'm about to talk about.
Our apologies because Herb Street ran out of time. We'll get him rescheduled soon. And for Matt Bruning and Austin Nace, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck. It is 9 p.m. Eastern time, the most American of time zones. That means it's time for the Devy Debate, brought to you by CampusToCanton.com. Austin Nace, Matt Bruning, Chris Moxley, all here, and I'm Felix Sharp on a partisan version of tonight's show. Who has the most to prove in an absolutely loaded Week 4 slate in college football? We discuss players who have moved in our rankings and what to make of Luther Burton's really, really hot start to the 2023 college football season. But I want to start with this, Chris, and I'm going to throw this question to you. It's the question, the title question on the thumbnail of the YouTube show today. By the way, go to youtube.com, like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers here during the college football season. Quinn Ewers or Sheduer Sanders, Chris Moxley. Now, I know you've got your own statistics. As a lifelong Colorado Buffaloes fan, I want to give you some of my own. Let's just look at the last two seasons. This season for Sheduer, obviously just 3 games in, 70% of his completing 78% of his passes, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, 9.2 yards per attempt. Last year at Jackson State, completed 70% of his passes, 40 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 7.7 yards per attempt. So he's actually his completion percentage is up, his yards per attempt is up, and he is on pace to have a similar touchdown interception ratio. Quinn Ewers, on the other hand, 2023 this season, completing 60% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions, 8.3 yards per attempt. In 2022, he completed just 58% of his passes, so he's up 2% there, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 7.4 yards per attempt. Chris Moxley, I feel like this should be unanimous, but go ahead. Sheduer Sanders or Quinn Ewers?
I assume we're talking about the NFL projection, mostly because, we're a Devy show. So I'll start there. I still think it's Quinn Ewers. And if this clip goes out, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble. Sheduer Sanders is playing extremely well with Sean Lewis. And I think a lot of that is Sean Lewis. I think you can attribute a good chunk of his success to the scheme, because when he does not have that receiver or that play or whatever the pre-designed, read is, he's terrible. He spends way too long in the pocket. 25% of his of pressures that he's faced this year so he's faced pressure 25% of the time. 40 of those out of 161, or 40 out of, I'm all over the place with these stats. 40 out of 56 were self-inflicted pressures. Not on his line. And his line is not very good. I'll give you that. But he's holding the ball way too long. He's indecisive decision-making. He's not getting the ball out either. And just to throw it away, he's just holding it. And it's so, I think it's a processing question at that point, or like the ability to extend plays, because he's not very athletic. So you're seeing all these I think, play call issues line up. And so that gives me an indication that Sean Lewis is really helping him out in that aspect. Quinn Ewers has like a 10% pressure rate.
I want to hear
like none
hear this.
None of that is his fault. He has 0.7 seconds less to throw per play. And I don't think he's been great this year, but I still think his prospect profile is really good. And I still buy into what Quinn Ewers is. I think if you put Quinn Ewers in Colorado and you switch Sheduer Sanders to Texas, equally productive or more so.
Matthew, are you going to stick up for your boy? Not going to Matt. All right, let me take.
Oh no, Austin left. You go first. Yeah, I'm looking up stats, so go ahead. I want to back my argument up. So you go first. No, I'll go next.
The one thing that Sheduer Sanders has been that Quinn Ewers is not is consistent. And that is what I like in a quarterback is consistency. We can say that, they're facing off coverage. He's hitting open receivers, but he's hitting them. He's completing damn near 80% of his passes. And we saw in that first game, they took the most deep shots, I think, in that TCU game. They took a lot of deep shots in there, and some of them were dropped. He's not just completing the low A dot throws. He's being accurate on some of the deeper throws also, the one-on-one opportunities that they get for Xavier Weaver and Travis Hunter. Now, is he throwing
that's fair. That's fair.
I don't necessarily think so. But he has been consistent. I've always said on this show, I want quarterbacks that are going to make free throws, make layups, and have the ability to hit the occasional three-pointer. I don't think Quinn Ewers is a player that can hit. He misses layups. He misses dunks. He misses free throws. When are we going to stop making excuses for Quinn Ewers? And I'm looking at my rankings here. I'm like, why is there so much of a difference between these two? The thing that if you just saw these guys play and you weren't aware of their recruiting pedigree, and they just had on black helmets with no numbers, with no names on the back of them, you would pick Sheduer Sanders. You would. The thing that is holding up Quinn Ewers is recruiting pedigree and the fact that we've kind of anointed Sark as a Lincoln Riley type where you have to have his quarterback. But he hasn't lived. He's been more Spencer Rattler than Caleb Williams. Quinn Ewers has. So these guys are not infallible, even when you have a highly touted and decorated recruit go to an offensive mastermind. Sheduer Sanders has been consistent. Now, again, has he made any throws that I'm like, oh, that's an NFL throw? Not necessarily, but he's been consistent where Quinn Ewers hasn't. So Matthew is going to tell you why you should still be high on.
Stats didn't back my argument, so we're not talking about those now. I was going to go. I dove into Nick's stats on the defense. I'll just go ahead and read them because I was curious. I don't believe, according to Nick's at C2C Winning Edge, Nebraska and TCU's defense is still rated fairly highly, which I find a little bit interesting. But he has them as the 42nd FBS for a Nebraska, TCU 39th, and then Colorado State 78th. Rice is 112th, which I think we all expected that would be the worst defense out of all the ones played. Then Alabama 4, Wyoming 7. I don't disagree at all with Quinn Ewers not being consistent. He hasn't. As a matter of fact, we talked about this last week. What did I say I was worried about with that Wyoming game? Was that Quinn Ewers was going to go back to being the guy we saw in week 1 against Rice and not the guy
the guy that we've seen in every other game except the two against Alabama.
when he doesn't play Alabama, he seems to be mediocre at best. I'm not going to disagree with that. And I agree with you on the fact that Sheduer Sanders has been by far more consistent. The stats show that. But he doesn't have any NFL attributes. He just doesn't. I'm not trying to say that he's going to get drafted. I think he's probably, my opinion, more likely a like round 4 guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes day 2. Sheduer Sanders, and I think he could be a very good backup quarterback in the NFL. Like, I think he has a chance to be on a roster for a very long time. So I think he is good. But we've seen, and I think Mox mentioned this last week when we talked Sanders, it's like this offense, all it does is produce numbers and these great stats for all these quarterbacks, and how many of them have actually succeeded into the NFL. The one thing I will say is I think Sheduer is better than Hendon Hooker, Bryce Petty, all those guys in that line. I think Sanders is by far the best out of all of those. Always, Trevor. But Quinn actually has...
Matthew is staying flexible.
Quinn Ewers has... Whether someone can get it out of him or not is still, I think a very... is a question you can ask. And I don't know that we're ever going to get this answer, but he has NFL attributes.
Well, you have to
answer.
Or
just doesn't.
So you're choosing Quinn, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you.
At the end of the day, this is going to sound like I'm throwing shade at you, and I promise you I'm not.
It wouldn't be the first time.
It wouldn't be. Even if he ends up going in round 2, he's going to have more value for you moving forward than Sheduer will when he hits the NFL. Quinn will. It's like what you've brought up with Zach Wilson. All that mattered is that he got drafted as the 2nd overall player. If you didn't think he was good at that point, you could have moved him for a ton because people did think he was going to be. He went 2 overall, right? 2 or 3, whatever. So if Quinn gets that draft capital, he's going to get drafted before Sheduer.
Wait, did you
if he doesn't,
day 2? Are you conceding? Are you conceding that he's not a first-round pick? You just said day 2.
Even if he goes day 2, he's getting drafted ahead of Sheduer. He's going to be valued more. If Sheduer Sanders gets drafted above Quinn Ewers, it is September 20th at 8:12 Central Time. And I'll be happy, honestly, if this happens. I will retire. I will sell my shares to the highest bidder for Campus to Canton, and I will retire.
What?
If Sheduer Sanders gets drafted before Quinn Ewers. If Sheduer Sanders gets drafted before Quinn Ewers next year, I will sell my shares.
In the chat, who gets drafted first, Quinn Ewers or Sheduer Sanders? I think what you guys are doing with Quinn Ewers is you are propping up Drew Lock. You're propping up Mitchell Trubisky. These guys who have first round. Drew Lock will win in the 2nd round. These guys who have first round ability, but not first round anything else. Sheduer Sanders might not have first round like physical traits, but that's why I compared him to Hendon Hooker last week. Hendon Hooker doesn't have outstanding physical traits, but he played the game well.
What does that do for you, though?
It doesn't.
If he's Hendon Hooker, it doesn't do anything.
He wouldn't have gotten drafted in the 1st round even if he didn't blow his knee out. That's our point. Like, look, nobody is sitting here telling you that Quinn Ewers is Caleb Williams. Like you said, he's closer to Spencer Rattler. Dude, 85% of the college football quarterback landscape is closer to Spencer Rattler than they are Caleb Williams.
Slander.
Nobody's that close to Caleb Williams. Nobody is. But Quinn Ewers has a much better shot of getting first-round draft capital than Sheduer does. And in the game that we play of fantasy, that's all that matters because you're going to have Matt Brunings in your league that when he gets drafted in the 20th, whatever, next year, and they're going to be, he's going to be the starting quarterback for this team, Matt Bruning will go buy Quinn Ewers because he still believes in him. Nobody's going to go buy Sheduer when he gets drafted in the 3rd or 4th round, and it's going to be a backup quarterback for someone like Hendon Hooker was. I think that's what me and Mox are saying.
I'll also concede.
And Matthew taking my comparison to the most literal point. He does this in the Slack, and it frustrates me to no end.
Makes for
Austin,
good show.
your internet is now working. Do you have an opinion? Please speak some reason into this. And you've also been, I think, I've been a lifelong Colorado Buffaloes fan. So maybe you.
I don't really have any thoughts on this because we've talked about it the past 2 weeks. So I'm good to move on here.
You don't have any thoughts on? Okay, whatever. Give me Sheduer. Give me Sheduer.
I actually think the more interesting topic to talk about tonight would be, did you hear that Dion, I think, came out today and said that his son doesn't intend on entering the draft this year? He intends on entering next year, which I actually think is kind of smart.
That's not surprising.
But
yeah, I agree.
Not because he whatever. I don't know if he's going to get better in the next year or whatever, but no Caleb Williams next year is nice. No Drake May either.
I'll bet that. Well, I'll do a tattoo bet that Quinn Ewers goes earlier in the draft this year than Sheduer Sanders.
You need help. Stop. You need help.
I'll get a Colorado Buffalo logo.
Hey, he's made it work. He's made it work so far. So I like my odds. I'm starting to even agree more with
This
Moxie.
witch doctor stuff.
Austin doesn't want to touch the Sheduer Sanders topic with a 10-foot pole. That's what's happening here. Housekeeping, the morning show on Saturday mornings. We're having a lot of fun there. We're actually getting a lot of good viewership. Better Sports is producing the tailgate this year. Will Chudy is producing. We got commercial breaks. We got music. We got everything. And I think I'm going to be hosting this week. So there's going to be chaos this morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. So stop by and hang out with us as we get you ready for the college football slate, really like no one else can, because legacy media, they're always team-focused, head coach-focused, and our family of shows, including the tailgate on Saturday mornings, is really player-focused, because if you are just tuning in for the first time, that is what we do around here. We're playing fantasy football with these guys, Sheduer Sanders, Quinn Ewers, all the guys that we're talking about today. We're playing college fantasy football with them, and then when they declare for their NFL draft, they're added to our NFL fantasy rosters. So our content is really player-focused, and we're trying to project who has the best chance at NFL success. That's really what we do around here at Campus to Canton. Help us get to 2,000 YouTube subscribers. If you like this content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like this video. What should the expectations be for Colorado for the remainder of the season? Austin, I hope I can throw this one to you. They've got Alton McCaskill coming in. They've got two big games here back-to-back at Oregon and then USC at home. I kind of want to go to that USC game. Arizona State is like in shambles with injuries. I think that they have a chance to win that one. They have a chance to win Stanford. They have a chance to win UCLA. Arizona, the Pac-12 is actually really good this year. We didn't think that this team was a bowl team coming into the season. I mean, a lot of us took
No. Someone said they would make a bowl game. And someone on the bottom row, not named Matt Bruning, said that would be, I don't remember the exact wording he used, but almost a miracle if they made a bowl game this year. Because I said it was going to happen. So I just don't want to be looped in with everybody here. On day one, Colorado Buffs fan was this guy saying they were making a bowl game this year.
I've been a lifelong Colorado Buffaloes fan, so I don't even know what you're talking
for
about.
the past 3 months.
Austin, do you see that miracle happening?
I'd like to first address the accusation in the chat. Someone said I changed my shirt when I did not change my shirt. This is the same shirt I was wearing. I'm not sure this guy, whoever said that's an idiot. So, Mike Valerie. I don't understand where that came from. Colorado expectations. I am interested. McCaskill just got the non-contact jersey off this week. Is that usually an indicator that it's going to happen like now? We think maybe he needs another week or two. He hasn't played football in a pretty long time. But it's also surprised me how long it's taken for him to be ready. So maybe they were just really making sure. I honestly don't know. I do think they need him pretty badly. They haven't run the ball effectively really much at all through the course of the season. I think that would help take a little pressure off the passing game. I think, I don't know. You said they're not going to have a problem with UCLA. I think UCLA is a pretty decent team.
I didn't. I said I said they could beat UCLA, but the next like cupcake on their team is Arizona State.
Yeah.
And then they might have, the two Arizona teams might be games that they win, but the Pac-12 is kind of loaded this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the score is going to be this weekend, but I think it's probably going to be pretty bad. No Travis Hunter. So someone will clip that one, if and when it's wrong. But no Travis Hunter. Oregon has a lot more speed on the back end. I think they'll be able to rush forward and just get the Sheduer all day. I think there's a lot of games left that are going to be really ugly. But I do think they'll beat Arizona State. I think that was one that we'd kind of circled as a possibility before the season. Arizona is an interesting one. I think the problem with a game like Arizona is Arizona can score with them.
Mm-hmm.
And we said before, like, you either got to be able to get home with 4 and drop to defend them, or you just got to be able to put up 60. I think Arizona could put up 60 with them. So I think that'll be an interesting game too. I don't know. I still think it's going to be tough for them to get to 6 wins. I still do. Not to to discount them. But I do think it's going to be. I mean, they almost lost this weekend to Colorado State. I'm wondering, really after that first game, I think teams have kind of figured them out a little bit overall. I mean, Nebraska lost because Jeff Sims can't handle a snap, or lost by that score line. I mean, I think some of these games might get a little ugly. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it was on this show or on Waldman's show, but I talked about the fact that, I mean, how often were we seeing defenses rush 3 against Colorado? And then one of the reasons why that Colorado State game was so close is Colorado's number 8, Kamara. He had 2 sacks in that game. It was kind of a disruptive force, and you see what you can do to this team if you have a pass rusher, if you have some athletic guys who can get around the edge. I mean, I would expect – I don't know why I'm spitting on myself. I would expect that they would go ahead.
By the way, noted tape guy Mike Valor went back and checked the tape. This is the same shirt I was wearing. Thank you, Mike.
They're going to have other teams that they play against that have better pass rushes. So let's see what happens when they can rush 4 or get home on blitzes. Chris, what are your expectations for Colorado the rest of the season? Is this a team? I mean, they're 3-0. They only got to win 3 more games to go bowling.
I think it's more likely they go 6-6 than they do 5-7. But I struggle to find a 7th win for them. So I think Arizona State is a win, and I think Arizona is possibly a loss, and I think Stanford is probably a win.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they can really hang in the other games. The thing about early season success for Colorado was that they're healthy. The depth of this team is frankly terrible. Their starting 11 on each side is pretty good. But when you get to that second unit on almost every position, it's really worrisome. So, yes, they're healthy now, but now they're down Travis Hunter. When injuries start to accumulate, like they do for every team in the country, you're going to see this unit exposed. And so down the stretch, I think it could get ugly. I think if you stay healthy through Arizona State and Stanford, you're probably looking at 6. That is currently my expectation.
I would give them the benefit of the doubt at their home games. And so their home games, the remainder of the season are USC, Stanford, Oregon State, and Arizona. They finish on the road back-to-back weeks, Washington State and Utah. So, Matthew.
Yeah, I think they definitely get to 6. I think they easily get to 5. Arizona State, they're on their 5th string quarterback, it feels like that. I don't think they're got really
so bad.
Yeah, they've already lost multiple offensive linemen, too. I don't think there's any shot they have a chance to stay in it. I think that they're better than Stanford, so I think they win that one, even if it's a close game. So then you're just looking for that one more win, because I agree with Chris. I think it's hard to find 7. The one that's interesting to me is Oregon State, and I like Oregon State.
Thinking the same thing stylistically.
Yeah, I think if the defense can slow Colorado down, then Oregon State has a chance to win it. But if they can't, I don't know that DJU and that offense can keep up with them. So if they're able to score enough points, I think that's actually the one that maybe they sneak away with, and it's not Arizona, because I agree with what Austin said. I think Arizona will match them point for point. So maybe that comes down to kind of like the TCU game, whoever's got the ball last wins, and if it's Colorado, then they end up winning it. Maybe that's how they get to 7. I would find it very hard that they don't get to 6, because I really think Arizona State and Stanford are lock wins at this point. So they've just got to pull one of those games out. We've seen, I don't think it's Oregon or USC. I don't think it's UCLA, because I do think UCLA is a really good team. But honestly, after them, I think they could. If we don't get Rising back, again, I know Utah's defense is good. I don't know if that offense can keep up if Sheduer and them are able to put up points. So I think Utah could be at Washington State. I really don't think that great. So I think they could get any one of those bottom 4 games outside of UCLA. So all they need is one to go bowling. I think they will.
I make the spread in everything but I just checked. Everything but Arizona over 2 touchdowns for the other team. So I don't think those games are going to be particularly close. I actually make the Oregon State's one 17.
Is there a place, is it for ESPN Plus members only, where I can look at post-game win expectancy? Is that an S&P thing?
Actually, Bill Connolly has it available on a Google sheet that you can go to his profile for. And I actually think Nick has it in his database as well.
Okay, because I'd be interested to see what their post game win expectancy actually was for the TCU and the Colorado State games, because they're 3-0 right, and that's the other thing. They're 3-0 right now. I would say if you're being generous, and like they probably should be 2-1. They probably should have lost one of Colorado. Like that's also something you have to factor in. Are they on the good side of a little bit of luck right now? And then if that flips, what's that look like? I think that would be an interesting thing to look at. I have to go see if I can find that.
I'd rather have some luck than no luck at all. Like it matters. I mean, they're still 3-0.
Oh, it definitely matters. But I mean, I think, if you're getting luck now, I don't know if you're going to get that all season. That doesn't always necessarily work out that way. It usually evens out by the end.
Lots of people in Boulder going to these games, but they don't have coordinated chants like you would see at Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State. You need to have a more intimidating presence as a fan base there in Boulder. You can try your luck on Prize Picks. Use promo code C2C for a deposit match of up to $100. We actually go through some suggested player props to play on Saturdays on the tailgate. So if you want to tune in, we will give you some particular plays. Somebody that has been getting play all year is Luther Burton. Now, I've been critical of Luther Burton, but you look at his statistics on the season: 22 receptions, 327 yards, 3 touchdowns. He only has 1 carry on the season, which is odd to me. Missouri is actually 3-0. 2 games over 100 yards, 1 game at 96 yards. I mean, he is balling. He is balling. Chris, what are your thoughts on Luther Burton here in year 2?
I think you have to be encouraged. So I'll preface everything with saying this, that the Eli Drinkwitz slot receiver is like one of the it's kind of a hack that people aren't aware of, but he's been an offensive coordinator for a long time before App State and then now Missouri. But I mean, some of the guys that he's produced have been really, really productive players, like Jacoby Myers when he was at NC State, Thomas Hennigan at App State. You go even further back to 2015, Thomas Spurbeck at Boise State, who actually holds the Boise State all-time receiving record. So this is a guy who feeds his slot receivers. 2020, 13% of the time he's coming out of the slot. That's mostly Dominic Lovett position. 2023, 85%. So you've seen a massive jump in his slot usage, and I think it's a totally different role that he's playing. He's able to get open deep, which we weren't seeing previously, and I think that's the big thing. His 8-out has actually dropped almost a full yard. That doesn't concern me as much because I think you're seeing better separation downfield. I think Austin talked about this on one of the shows he was on earlier this week as well, of like he is at least doing it, whether or not it's resulting in targets or catches. I see him doing it, and potentially because he's coming out of the slot, that's probably part of it. That's not a bad utilization for Luther Burton. Like, I think he could be a slot player and like a really effective one. So I'm very encouraged.
So the ADOT is a little bit lower because, as Felix mentioned, they're not handing him the ball anymore. They're using him as more of an if they're going to use him as like an extension of the running game, they're kind of tossing it, behind the line of scrimmage to him, kind of swinging it out, letting him go from there. I've dug through because I wrote about him, like you said, and for the key takeaway stuff, and did that show this week. He's actually this year, if you compare him to kind of some of the years of like Laviska Shenault, Rondell Moore, some of kind of like those slot after the catch guys you want to highlight, he's actually getting more targets downfield than either of them were in the intermediate or deep. And he's converting a larger percentage than either of those guys did. They're just, because they're using him a little bit as kind of that extension of the run game. If you actually go and look, I looked at about 7 or 8 different players. The guy that he actually matches the closest to in terms of usage this year that I looked at is Emeka Egbuka from last year. Very similar behind the line of scrimmage / short splits, very similar intermediate and long splits, and he's been about similarly effective. He's making more guys miss than on a per touch basis than Shenault, Moore, any of those guys were when he's catching it short. So, and it's not contested stuff deep. He's only had 2 contested targets deep. So I think the Shenault Moore prototype is not what he's been doing this year. It's a lot closer to Egbuka. And actually, he really, in terms of target percentage, in terms of distance, matches almost exactly what Juju Smith-Schuster did his next to last year in college. Juju just didn't play out of the slot as much as he did.
This is what I want. He is getting deep. However, he's getting deep on defenses that are coming up to play that stuff that he does in the flat. And so it's a smart way to use him, but in that sense, he is still being used similarly to Laviska Shenault, similarly to Rondale Moore. And that usage is not something that we can guarantee at the next level. He is not being used the way we would see a traditional X or slot wide receiver be. I don't know what we're going to call him at the next level, if he's a slot wide receiver or if he's an X. He's definitely not being used as a traditional X. He's not lining up in the boundary, with a safety over the top of him, playing against press coverage and running a route and getting open. He's not doing that. He is getting a lot of manufactured touches. I don't think anybody here would disagree with that. No, Austin just said the stuff behind the line of scrimmage. And yes, he is getting deep, but he is getting deep. There's a play, I think in week 1, it was Tripp's bunch. He had already caught a bunch of these short passes. It looked like he was just going to block for another wide receiver. He gets deep. He gets open deep. That's the defense playing whatever it is that they did. That's setting up play action all game. That's setting up, they've been setting that stuff up. Is
that not what a smart OC is supposed to do, though?
Justin Jefferson got a handful
of manufactured.
Exactly what a smart OC is supposed to do. All I'm saying is that he is not being used like a traditional slot wide receiver, like a traditional X, if that's what you want to call him. It doesn't mean that he cannot be used that way. I saw a play from Puka Nacua on Sunday. They ran crossers. Everybody runs crossers all the time. They ran crossers against zone. Crossers against zone, you sit in front of the quarterback's face. Crossers against man, you keep going, running away from your coverage. I don't see Luther Burton making those types of decisions on a route-to-route basis. Just don't. That doesn't mean that he can't. Just don't mean that I don't see it. So some of the concerns that I had about him being kind of like a gadget guy, I still have those concerns, except for Drinkowitz is doing an excellent job of using him as a gadget guy. That's it. So that's like if you could guarantee me that he's going to be used like Jarvis Landry a la in Miami, sign me up for that all day. 100 catches, his yards after the catch ability. He's built like a running back. He runs after the catch like a bell. And somebody said in the chat that he looks more explosive this year. I actually agree with that. But he is being used like a gadget guy. Just very, very effectively, in my opinion. Matthew?
Go ahead, Max.
Somebody.
No, I was going to say he actually reminds me of the way that Maryland used DJ Moore at the end of his career there. With a lot of
I've made that comp too. Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad. I actually think that's a pretty good comp. And I mean, Juju is kind of similar. Well, their deployment's pretty different, but he reminds me the way that they're deploying him is so much like DJ Moore type stuff. And as a South Carolina fan, I thought it was Debo-esque too. So that's the type of player that I see, and that's a successful archetype. But it is an untraditional archetype of receiver. It's one that takes a very specific skill set to succeed, and I think Burton has that.
But it also takes a vision from your offensive play caller to use them in that certain way. I think Debo has taken a hit a little bit on his value since I don't know if it was a year and a half or so ago. No, he's not taking a hit on his value.
He has not taken any hit on his value. People value him very highly still.
Oh, okay. Yeah, consensus wise. I mean, maybe if you're holding him, you're valuing him, but
all right.
Yeah, he's dropped pretty considerably.
I thought so too. But Matthew, do you want to finish this conversation? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Can I do an impression for you really quick?
Can you do an impression?
It doesn't matter what you think. That's what The Rock would say to you there, Felix Sharp. Because at the end of the day, we are a fantasy show. And you may be right. Maybe he is gadgety and it's not going to matter. Maybe he is Laviska Shenault, Rondale Moore, who hasn't panned out in the NFL. That's why people listen to us. Because you know what? He's still going to put up the stats. And people who aren't paying attention are going to look at him and be like, dude, look at this guy balling out at Missouri. He's athletic. You know he's going to test well when it comes to the combine. It's probably going to get first round draft.
All things that we knew about Rondale Moore and Laviska Shenault. All the same arguments could be made.
That's right, sweetie. Let me finish. So at the end of the day, if you think he's going to be Laviska Shenault, then when we get to that point, we tell you to sell him. We're not telling you that you may be wrong on him being gadgety, but it does matter what he's doing. This is exactly what Nate Marquise, Chris Moxley, pretty sure Austin Nace and Matt Bruning have been telling you guys all offseason was going to happen with the coaching changes that they made at Missouri with Luther Burton. And that, for us, is all that matters because he's balling out for you on the C2C side of things. If he gets first-round draft capital, if you think he's going to be Laviska Shenault and Rondé Moore, not Debo or Emeka Egbuka, then you move him. And that's why you win when you listen to us, because we're giving you all of that. You're winning on your campus side because you listen to Chris Moxley, Nate Marquise, Austin Nason, Matt Bruning, and not Felix Sharp. But then when you listen to Felix Sharp later and move him because he's Laviska Shenault, you win there because you get high-end value for him and he ends up not panning out.
Okay. Let's move on here. Another player that is having a really good comeback season. I don't know if we want to call them that. Tyler Van Dyke and the Miami Hurricanes. They're 3-0, including they didn't boat race Texas A&M, but Texas A&M couldn't stop them defensively. Tyler Van Dyke completing 76% of his passes, 8 TDs to 1 interception, only been sacked twice. Got 3 wide receivers with more than 15 receptions. This is a guy, back when he was battling with Jake Garcia and behind De'Aaron King, I was like, this guy has the juice. He had it in 2021, didn't have it in 2020. Had it in 2021 with Rhett Lashley. Didn't have it in 2022 with Josh Gaddis. Who could have seen that coming? And he seems to have recaptured some of that magic with Shannon Dawson at the helm. By the way, I saw a picture. Is Shannon Dawson white? I had thought all along that Shannon Dawson was a black guy. And then I saw him on the sideline, and I was like, okay. We will confirm. We're going to do some.
Pretty sure he's.
We're going to do some reporting. I thought he was a black dude, and so when
I can tell you he's not black. I can tell you that much.
That I assume that he was black. Shannon Dawson.
No, that is not the case.
Anyway, I was actually disappointed to find out. No offense, but I thought I was cheering for a black OC over there. Anyway, I was heartbroken when I saw it. I'm just being honest. Sorry, I'm just being honest. I thought he was black. We'll edit this out. We'll edit this part out. Chris Moxley, Miami, Tyler Van Dyke, are they back?
I think they are certainly more back than they were last year. I actually have been really impressed with Tyler Van Dyke. I watched their game against Bethune-Cookman last week, and he was hitting like all the throws. I mean, he was hurt last year, so I think that's a little bit part of it. But also, Josh Gaddis is this malevolent influence on any offense that he coaches. Big time throw rate is 3 times higher. Adjusted completion percentage is up from 75.8 to 86%. That is insane. His ADOT is essentially the same. It's a little bit lower, but I think that they're scheming up easy throws for him. And when he takes shots deep, he can. They're utilizing their receiver speed extremely well, which is something that they weren't doing last year. This is a fast team. And so I think they're doing last year they were doing him a disservice of not stretching the field and getting he's an aggressive quarterback. Let him cook downfield. And I think this is a really good match between Dawson and Van Dyke, and the offense has every reason to be excited because they performed really well against Texas A&M, really well. I was super impressed because I think that Texas A&M team is pretty good. So yeah, they're back at least for this year.
William asked a question in the chat. That's actually a good question. He said, what constitutes, he didn't say what, I'm translating for him. He says, what is back? What constitutes back? I mean, I think that means can they compete in the ACC? You got Florida State, Clemson, in North Carolina. Can they compete with Clemson? Maybe this year. Can they compete with?
I think
Florida
they could beat Clemson this year.
I think they can compete with all of those teams. There's not a dominant. I mean, we saw on Saturday with Florida State playing Boston College, albeit, with the weather and in their place. But I mean, that was a close game. I don't think that there's no team in the country other than Washington that looks unbeatable. Why? I don't think Washington might not lose a game this year. Go ahead, Mox.
No, I was just going to say, I think that there's a chance they could beat FSU and Clemson. And I certainly would rate them over North Carolina right now.
I agree.
I'm really excited, honestly. I really like what I've seen from Van Dyke, and I really like what I've seen from this offense. It's aggressive, but it also plays to his strengths as a quarterback. And last year's offense obviously did not do that, but 2 years ago it did with Lashley. So I will say that they are back insofar that they can contend for the ACC, and that Tyler Van Dyke looks like a good quarterback again. That's back enough for me.
Our friend Andy Starr from the Andy, I forget. John does. Andy, forgive me. John does so many podcasts that I forget
Full
which
Tilt.
one you're on with him.
Tilt.
Is the Full Tilt. It is the Full Tilt Devy podcast. He says, does Xavier Shrepro have NFL value? I mean, a lot of these successful slot wide receivers have some sort of NFL value, albeit on day 3 from Hunter Renfrow to Cole Beasley to, guy. I always forget the Alabama wide receiver who played over JoJo Earl. Yes, Slade Bolden. He got drafted by what? The Baltimore Ravens. So no. I think it was the Ravens. I'm pretty sure it was I think he's on the Ravens team. I think Slade Bolden. Somebody check me on that.
It just feels like a Patriots draft pick.
It does feel like a Patriots draft.
He was signed by the Ravens. You're right. Does he remind you of any other players? Julian Edelman, Wes Welker,
Xavier Restrepo.
Yeah, just curious.
What are you trying to say? There's a big race theme in today's show.
It's Austin's favorite.
It is Austin's favorite. That's why he's so talkative.
Everything's race
tonight. Austin, who's the QB3 after Caleb Williams and Drake May?
Good question. I don't think there is one still. Is that crazy?
There has to be one. You come with an answer. There's going to be a third quarterback drafted.
Well, drafted, sure. I mean, I still think so. Here's why everyone's saying, this is kind of the year of the quarterback in college. If you go and look at a lot of the guys that are succeeding across college this year, they're 5th or 6th year guys that have that COVID year under their belt, and they probably sat for a redshirt year. We're talking, Jaden Daniels, talking Bo Nix, we're talking Penix, we're talking, pretty much all those kind of guys have been in college for so long. They're very experienced. It's like dropping an NFL backup into college and kind of letting them cook. So I don't feel great about the projectability of any of those guys. I think the bucket that you're talking about is, I don't know. I mean, yours, McCarthy. I think if you want to toss Sheduer in there, that's fine. I don't think any of them are day 1 players, which is kind of just why I'm not sure I really care. I mean, maybe Michael Pratt. I don't know. We got that one really good game on him, and he's been injured this year. So, what's he look like when he comes back? I don't know. I don't think there's a great other name in here.
I think that there's a chance that Jalen Hurts and what's your Pittsburgh quarterback? Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett.
I think, because Jalen Hurts was a 5th-year senior all-star, or was he only a 4th-year senior? Regardless, he was a senior. What I'm saying is that I think that they may have changed the mold on this thing a little bit, where you would have wanted a quarterback to really declare after the 3rd year, make sure the NFL is like demanding that they come to the league. But we've seen guys stick around in college in those 2, and then
Hurts was 4.
He was a
4 year.
He was a 4-year. Okay, Kenny Pickett was a 5th year, but we've seen them not only command draft capital, but like play well. I think that there's a chance that the NFL may not care if you stuck around for your 5th year, maybe even your 6th, if you are playing at an exceptional level. And both Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix have been playing at an exceptional level for the last 2 years. I think it's going to be like, if you kind of know what you're getting with those two. I think it would be hard if you are considering quarterback in the NFL draft. Are you going to go with like Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix or Quinn Ewers or Kyle McCord? I kind of think that you're going to go with the players who you've seen their ceiling. I think the quarterback 3 is Michael Penix Jr. Matthew, who do you have? That's the question posed. Who's the quarterback?
I find it hard to think it's going to be Penix, maybe because I'm just so worried about the medicals and how that's going to pan out. Like, I don't disagree with what you said about him and Bo Nix, but what we've seen these NFL teams do, in my opinion, more often in the top picks, which I think is where QB3 is going to go, they're going for a guy that they haven't seen the ceiling on. Like Kenny Pickett didn't go in the top 12. He went later on to the Steelers because they knew what they were getting and they felt like they needed a quarterback. When you saw guys like Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and these guys go that we know aren't exactly polished prospects, but you think the ceiling is way up here, they're taking them because all these NFL head coaches have this ego that I can fix this dude. So I still think it's going to end up being like a Quinn Ewers or a JJ McCarthy, because they have those NFL tools that you can bet on. I don't know that I'm taking either one of those guys in the top 10, but I think there's a better shot that one of those guys goes ahead of Penix or Bo Nix, because the NFL coaches, I think, will talk themselves into the ceiling being higher, even though we've seen Penix and Bo Nix be more consistent with it. They'll talk themselves into the ceiling being higher. So I would go with one of them personally.
And I want to make sure we understand the question that's being posed.
Who's QB3?
Who's QB3? Chris Moxley. Who is the quarterback 3 in this upcoming draft class? Chris shakes his head. He shakes his elbows in the air.
I really do think it's Michael Pratt. I really do. I got mocked and ridiculed for saying that Pratt had a live arm, or like a really good arm, and apparently that was the wrong thing to say. And then I think he's made a lot of strides in his mechanics from where he was year one to where he is now. I really do. And I think that was a big question for him. He's a gamer. He's won in.
By the way, unless it's a Tulane podcast, there is no podcast that covers all of college football that was talking about Michael Pratt 3 years ago. Not one, but we were here a lot. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, you're right. He's currently the highest graded quarterback on PFF. Just saying, even though he's played one game. I really want him to get another opportunity to play a really big game this year, because I thought his game against USC, that final drive against USC where he was getting first downs with his legs, making great throws. I thought that was a classic gamer. NFL GMs are going to turn that on and be like, this is the dude we want. And he was hurt on that drive too, I think, if I recall correct. So I really still like Michael Pratt, but if it's not Pratt, I think it's going to be Quinn for what it's worth.
When you say he's QB3, do you think that there's a chance Michael Pratt is a first round draft pick, or are you just saying he's going to be the third quarterback drafted?
I think there's a chance he's a first round draft pick. I think he's better than Will Levis was. And I know Will Levis went in the second round, but Will Levis was minus 5,000 to go in the first round. It's the expectation was that he was going to be there. I don't know. Michael Pratt, can you just see a GM falling in love with Michael Pratt? Because I can. I can see that happening, and someone getting obsessed with who he is, character-wise. He's a quarterback.
He started as a true freshman. He had the upset against USC. He almost upset Caleb Williams his sophomore season. Sophomore season.
That was Spencer Rattler.
In Norman.
It was against Spencer Rattler.
That was Spencer.
He also almost it wasn't the COVID season. It was his second season. Yeah.
But
you're right.
I mean, you've seen him play great in big games, and I think the biggest question on him is mechanics, and I think that he still has a little bit of way to go. But is he getting the best quarterback coaching at Tulane? I think there's probably more upside there. So I think that a team would say, hey, we can clean some of this ancillary stuff up if we get him in the building, because we think that he's the guy. And I kind of buy that.
If we're using the argument, are they getting the best quarterback training, then we got to throw JJ McCarthy in the mix, because he ain't getting any quarterback training at Michigan right now. I'll tell you that right now.
JJ McCarthy's played much better than I thought he had for 2 weeks. And then he threw 3 interceptions against Bowling Green. And I was like, all right, it's JJ McCarthy.
Speaking of two things about Michigan not having quarterback coaching. I just came across a Jim Harbaugh football card. I was looking for something, and I found a whole Jim Harbaugh. The fact that he can't develop a quarterback, the fact that he's going to lose out on the kid from Belleville, who's the number one quarterback in the 2025 class, the fact that he lost out on Dante Moore, it's just and he played in the NFL. Why can't you develop quarterbacks consistently?
Who gets credit for Andrew Luck?
Andrew Luck does.
Andrew Luck does. No, most people actually give that credit to Harbaugh, but it should go to.
I was going to say
it should go to Andrew Luck.
Honestly, if I'm going to give him credit for any quarterback that he's had his hands on over his career, it's getting a pretty good couple of years out of Colin Kaepernick.
I disagree with that. I think that goes all to Greg Roman, because if you look at everywhere
That's
Greg
fair.
Roman's gone, he's
That's
run
fair,
his quarterbacks that way. I don't think that was Harbaugh at all.
What is that kid's name from Belleville? Somebody tell me. There's a quarterback, Bryce Underwood. Yeah, Bryce Underwood, who's probably going to go to Alabama, or he might go to Colorado, as a matter of fact.
It seems like he might go.
He might go to Colorado, but Jim Harbaugh is going to. Baby. It's 2 years in a row where Jim Harbaugh is going to miss out on a quarterback coming from his backyard. You know how often you get a top quarterback coming from Michigan? It like never happens. That should be an automatic go to Michigan, but it's not because Jim Harbaugh is terrible at developing that position.
Where is Belleville?
Belleville is like a little bit west of Detroit. I'm pretty sure it's on 94.
It's within like 45 minutes probably of campus.
It's within 45 minutes of Ann Arbor. Way within 45 minutes of Ann Arbor.
Same thing for Dante
Moore.
Yeah.
Dante Moore is just north. Yeah. All right. Let's I wanted to, speaking of not having faith in something, I want to talk about players that we might be moving off of. Just, down our rankings, moving at faith, trading them away, etc. We're going to talk about rankings too, rankings movers. I compiled a list here of guys that I was just going to name, but does anybody else have like names that they were already thinking of that I'm just, okay, well, I'll ask.
I'm pulling up mine right now. I've got some guys that I've nuked this year. Yeah.
Well, let me start here because I know that this is one of your favorites in the offseason, Jace McClellan. I feel like that whole Alabama team is down, but they're just not getting explosive plays. Jace McClellan, we knew he was the athlete that he was, the way he tested before he tore his ACL. How are you feeling about Jace McClellan?
Yeah, not feeling great, but they've also not run the ball well at all this year, which has confused me. We talked a little bit about that on Campus Life, I think, this week. They're having troubles passing the ball, but they also can't establish the run with that offensive line. I don't know, just very confusing to me. I refuse to believe that none of the backs on Alabama are talented enough that you could roll them out there and rack up 250 yards rushing as a team. So, I am pretty concerned, but I think this whole team is not running well right now.
Mox, I think you and I were here on this train for Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson was placed in a bad situation last week. There's no way that he got starter reps when they put him in that game against USF. He hasn't prepared this season as the starter. And as far as passing, he had the biggest play in that game. I'm not moving off of Ty Simpson. And I'm asking you, Chris, because I think you are also a fan of him. So I'm not moving off of Ty Simpson yet.
No, I was a big fan. I am moving off of him because he's the third quarterback at Alabama, and that tells me that
not anymore. Saban said today he's the backup.
I thought he played okay enough, given that I didn't think he had starter reps either. Like, he didn't look great, but he looked better than Tyler Buchner did. Tyler Buchner looked terrible. And so are we going to, I don't know, I don't want to speculate on this show, but like the reason that Jalen Milroe didn't play, it's been widely speculated elsewhere that Saban went to him and said, hey, we're going to give Buchner some reps as quarterback one.
Yeah.
Milroe didn't handle that well at all. And it was basically disciplinary that he didn't play at all, which I think is kind of interesting to keep an eye on for the rest of the season. I've heard that, I think I'm at 2 or 3 different places. So I think that's a little bit, red flaggish, but I am kind of moving off Simpson. Not where I had him because I thought he was going to win the job. I thought he looked better in spring, but there's obviously stuff in practice that we're not seeing that is keeping him closely glued to the bench.
If a coach told me that and the guy that was the backup went out and performed like that, I probably and I knew that was how that dude was about to play. Yeah, I probably would have acted like that too. I'm sorry, I would have.
Yeah, so part of it, I don't remember who said it. Might have. I don't want to attribute this to someone wrongly. So whoever said it, and I don't remember because I listen to 10 CFB shows a week, basically said that it's a bit of power struggle between Saban and Tommy Rees for their guy, and that Tommy Rees's guy was Buchner. So it's
how is Tommy Rees's guy Buchner when Sam Hartman transferred to Notre Dame before? That doesn't make sense to me.
He recruited Hartman to Notre Dame before he left and went to Alabama. So yeah, I don't.
Rees was the guy who helped recruit Buchner to Notre Dame first.
That makes sense, but yeah.
So there's been a lot of speculation about the quarterback room there this week that has been not positive at all. I just wanted to throw that out.
I've got
Austin,
2.
if you're 0-3, Austin, and you have Jalen Milroe, there's no NFL future. He's a pure CFF guy and a decent one. So I'm trading Jalen Milroe if I'm 0-3 on the college side. That's a question.
Sure. I guess so. I don't think you'd get a lot for him. That's the problem, because I don't think people really value what he's doing. I mean, I think it. I don't want to say that, because some of these running quarterbacks will just end up like, kind of like, I never would have guessed that Jalen Hurts would do what he did in the NFL. Never ever would have guessed it. So I don't want to say never, but I don't know. I don't think.
Would you take
at Alabama
a fifth round?
What do we think? I mean, you think he leaves?
You think somebody else is coming in?
I wouldn't be surprised if they reshuffle that whole quarterback room.
I wouldn't be
surprised if 3 or 4 of those guys are gone after this year, and it's.
Well, I was actually thinking about this in the car today. I think it's the one that you want is Lonergan.
That's who.
Because he's the one that's been getting. Yeah. Like, if you can slide in, if Dylan Lonergan was the starter there, that doesn't mean he's going to be great or be fantasy relevant. But it seems like if Jalen Milroe is Cam Akers, it feels like Kyron Williams is Dylan Lonergan. I hope that analogy made sense.
I think there's under 20% chance that Lonergan's the guy next year. I think they're going to go to the portal.
I think Lonergan's in an awkward position within this struggle for that starter spot, where I think that it's so obvious that they need to upgrade that they'll search very hard in the portal. Plus, with Sayin coming in, I think that he'll I don't think Sayin will start week 1 or anything like that, but I think he'll factor into the competition a little more. I mean, how bad did Drake May F up by not going to Alabama this year?
Miss out on the bag and possibly chance to make the playoffs.
I mean, we heard that he was offered a lot of money. I don't think the May family is hurting for money, for what it's worth.
Yeah. I actually disagree. I think Julian Sayin will start next year.
Week 1?
Yeah. I don't think Nick Saban's going to have any concern about that whatsoever. 12 team playoff, you've got time. I don't know if you can find their schedule right now. It's not like they're starting out with Georgia. I think that they won't be afraid to throw him out there. We keep hearing everybody's afraid to do it. We saw Jaden Rashada go out there this year. Dante Moore has already taken that job. I've said it before. I think with these teams going to the 12-team playoff format, I don't think Nick Saban's going to be that worried about it. He'll throw a freshman quarterback out there.
Are you sure it's going to be Nick Saban?
No, that actually I'm not sure of, but
yeah, people think that Saban's going to retire.
It'll be Sheduer and Dion next year than in Alabama. We'll see how it goes.
It's Western Kentucky week 1 next year, so you're setting quarterback up for success regardless of who.
And that's a position that we're looking to see who's going to fill that quarterback spot next year at Western Kentucky. Matthew, you said you had to.
Yeah, it's just Cade Klubnik and Ty Simpson. They're getting tanked back into the 60s like they were last year when I got called out for it. That's all I got to say. And Brandon Innes, if I'm being honest. I'm really worried he's going to be a year 1-0, unfortunately.
Austin, did you have a list of guys you're moving off of?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm kind of pulling some names right now. Some running backs that I think have looked really bad this year. Jarquez Hunter and Caleb Johnson, I thought were kind of, fringy sleeper type guys that could have maybe gone in like the 3rd round. Both have just, quite frankly, stunk this year. And actually, this isn't even a shot at you, Felix, but this player has really disappointed me in terms of role and production this year. Mayan Williams has basically been relegated to the 3rd back there. Chip Trayanum's passed him.
He has, which is so weird to me. He has passed him.
As a lifelong Chip Trayanum fan that gave up on Chip Trayanum because of the shift to linebacker, this still surprises me that he's kind of jumped into the RB2 role there, like he never even left. Very, very odd situation there all around.
It's because
I've been starting Mayan Williams. Well, I started Mayan Williams in week 2, I believe, and I'm like,
Mayan Williams sucks.
So I'm literally, look, right now, I am being mocked and ridiculed.
I mean, he got passed up by a backup linebacker in less than half a year. I don't know what you want me to say.
Guy who played running back for a full year.
We got a dude who's Charmin soft, according to 2 of you on this podcast, and a guy who was literally the 4th-string linebacker has already passed him up in 2 games. But you know what? He's the 2nd-round draft.
It's been 3 games. Let's see if this holds up.
Mayan Williams played a little bit in week 1. I don't even think he touched the field in week 2, and I know damn sure he didn't touch the field last week.
He scored in week 1 because I got a touchdown from him. I started him in week 2, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
But in fairness, the civilization or the player?
None of the Ohio State running backs have been that good. All right, Any other players that you guys are moving off of? JoJo Earl to the Shadow Realm. I really love JoJo Earl. Joe Milton. I have no idea what I would expect.
He stinks.
Hey, remember,
bottom
he was
line.
Anthony Richardson this year, baby. That's what I was told to start the year. This year's Anthony Richardson.
I bought in a little bit, and I regret it because I saw him be terrible at Michigan. Then I saw him be terrible and get benched for Hendon Hooker. And then I said, maybe this time. It's like the Tobias meme from Arrested Development, where he says, but maybe we can. No, it's Joe Milton stinks. Bottom line. I actually think we're going to see Nico Imalieva in the next 2 weeks.
I think so too. Mox, a pure CFF question. Say Bangura, who's had the touches but not the production. Are we just waiting for action for him? Because, a lot of people drafted him thinking he was going to be like a RB1.
I think so, but I also don't like how involved O'Shawn Allison is for this team.
Yeah.
He was the guy, 2 years ago? And it's a little worrisome, but I think Ohio's really good. So I think they're going to get in game scripts where both can be productive. And I think you're not going to get like massive 35-point weeks for Bangura, but you're going to have a guy who's productive enough.
Movers in our rankings. Austin, can I any particular players that have moved a ton? One for me is Luther Burden. I had Luther Burden at like wide receiver 20 something. And listen, if he's going to produce and be that athletic and he's going to go test well, fine. I think there is some safety in projecting his draft capital. He's going to be day 1, day 2 player, but I just can't project his usage at the next level. So regardless, I've compensated for that by he's now back into my top 10 or something like that. So he's one guy that's moved up for me.
Yeah, I'm trying. I think some of the biggest movers for me were second-year guys that I was waiting to do something. So if I was in if I'm in a Devy league and I had them, I could flip them for something. Or if I was in a C2C league and maybe I get some CFF value. But I've nuked CJ Williams, who's now at Wisconsin. I've nuked DJ Allen at TCU. I've nuked Shaz Preston. Finally gave up on Talon Shetron. Caden Saunders, I think, is worthless at this point. Grays is way down there. I'm trying to go through and see some other guys. I think those are kind of some of the big names. If we're talking about like more expensive guys that I've dropped a couple of spots.
Can I say something in response to the names you just identified? I think this offseason we will need to have like a transfer portal sort of maybe ranking show for guys like, Jordan Hudson going to SMU this year. Like, how do these guys who we had high expectations for at one point, and they've transferred to another, like Kyan Grays is from Arizona. Like, just imagine if you went to Arizona or quite frankly, Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham there. I think that would maybe change a little bit of his picture. I think we should have a show dedicated to just talking about all the guys that switched positions and if they can get some new life. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Like Emmanuel Henderson. Emmanuel Henderson going from Florida. We knew he was athletic going to Cincinnati. Who would have thought that? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Wait, what?
Xavier Henderson, you mean?
Xavier. I said Emmanuel Henderson. Xavier Henderson. Henderson. Yeah.
Real quick, I don't know if anybody knows this, so I'll just say Keon Grays has actually been injured, which is why he has not played at all. But yeah, I don't think he would have anyway, right? Probably not. I don't think he deserves to even be ranked at this point. But
were there any? Okay, all right.
Clay Millen gave up on that hope.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Let's move here to this weekend. This is an excellent slate of games. There are a lot of ranked teams playing each other. Florida State, Clemson, Colorado, Oregon, UCLA, Utah, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oregon State, Washington State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Iowa, Penn State. Matthew, I think I would, as far as who has something to prove this weekend, it's Kyle McCord on the road at Notre Dame. That is probably going to be the most watched game of the weekend, I would guess. Oregon and Colorado might get a big number, but as far as games that we expect to be close, there's going to be a lot of people watching this. And I think Kyle has something to prove that I am a player that I can, go into this type of environment and pull out a win.
Yeah. I said this, I think 2 weeks ago when we had to our panic meter. Maybe it was last week on Kyle McCord. Like, I think this is the game. If he plays well, I don't think there's any shot we see Devin Brown. I still think there is a shot if Kyle goes in there and this is like a tie ball game going into the fourth quarter and Kyle has not played well and he's throwing interceptions. I would not be surprised if we see Day try and throw Devin Brown out there. But if he goes out there and wins them this game, I think McCord is like sewing up the job for sure moving forward. It's going to be, I think, a very good game. Notre Dame's defense, I think, is going to be able to challenge them a little bit. I'm excited for it. I think the other big game, and I don't disagree. I think a lot of people are going to watch Colorado, Oregon. I don't think that's going to be a good game, like maybe till halftime, but I think Oregon is just overall the much better team. The one that's interesting to me is Florida State Clemson, because I think this has got a big shot for this is a big chance for Jordan Travis and them to bounce back after that game against Boston College last week and really kind of take, in my opinion, that conference by the neck if they're able to beat Clemson. Because if they do that, I think they're going to be considered the favorites, and they don't play Miami. I think it's like the second to last game of the season for them. So I think it will probably come down to those two, because I don't think North Carolina is on their level either. So that to me is like the really big one, because Clemson's kind of had their number. And I know Clemson hasn't necessarily looked good, but you still got to go up there and beat Big Brother to end up taking the mantle. So that is the game I am excited about. I'm glad that it's the morning game. Like, it's not really, in my opinion, conflicting with a lot of other big games. So that is the other one to me.
I would really like to know the over-under on this game, because I think that's going to be a defensive matchup where both offenses may try to play keep away with
55.
Some sort of ball. 55. Yeah. I would take the under on 55. So that's why Trey Benson, I think, is important in this game. Trey Benson has not had, the production that we thought he would to this point of the season. Clemson is a good defense. I think Clemson is. I mean, I saw Nate Wiggins returning a pass for a touchdown. So I'm going to use that pick six against an overmatched team to conclude that Clemson still has a good defense. But when you play a good defense, you have to be able to get first downs on the ground.
There is one other game I forgot to mention. I think this is Ole Miss's chance to really do something in the SEC. This is their shot for
Lane Kiffin. Prove it.
This is Kiffin's shot to take down Saban right here. This is the best chance he's going to have. And I don't think Jackson Dart has played horrible so far this year. This is going to be their opportunity. They almost had him last year. This is going to be their opportunity right here to take down Alabama.
Okay, in years past, Alabama would have had one of these games where they won, but they barely squeaked it out, and then they would go dominate the next opponent that they played. I'm scared that could happen here. I'm scared, they're just so focused in practice and they just go out and dominate.
If they had a Bryce Young, if they had a quarterback, I'd agree with you. I just don't see Jalen Milroe. I don't even see, I tweeted, I thought Ty Simpson was going to get the shot to start this week, to be honest with you, after what he did last week. Maybe he has a chance because I know the upside's there, quote unquote, but I don't see it. I don't think that defense is going to be able to slow down. They weren't able to slow down Judkins last year. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it again this year. Dart looks better. I think this is their chance. I don't think Milroe is going to be the one who gets it done.
Austin, Chris, any other players that you wanted to mention?
No. I think Ole Miss is pretty banged up for what it's worth. I actually am not sure that Judkins is injured. Trey Harris is injured. Zachary or Zachary, I don't know, is Franklin's injured. Priestcorn's injured. Trigg sat out last week for disciplinary issues or something. Is that? I don't want to besmirch the guy if that's not true, but I thought that was true. So I mean, I don't know what they're going to be throwing to. Who's going to be moving the ball? I actually think Alabama wins this. I don't think it's the classic. They come out and hang 56 on them, but I kind of like Alabama to kind of pound them a little bit here. If Ole Miss wins the game, obviously Alabama is kind of done, but Alabama might be done. And I need to go find it because I talked about this last year. They're still going to be able to recruit and blah, blah, blah. I was like, Alabama is headed for.
They have been recruiting, though. He's still got. Didn't they have the number one class last year? It's not like they haven't been recruiting. They just haven't had that quarterback. That's the problem.
Yeah. I still projected Alabama to, be in a down period. And another
It's just
thing
really
about
tough to be
Ron.
amazing every year. I mean, Georgia has
It
been
is.
very good this year, and they.
Well, you would think that they would be able to go back to that old school game where they just kind of overpower teams and run the ball, like you said earlier.
That's the only thing that surprised me about them this year, quite frankly. I think everything else has looked pretty similar to what we kind of expected. I'm just shocked that they're not running the ball 50 times a game and not doing it effectively. They got a big offensive line. I mean, I know they haven't played amazingly, but run blocking is a lot different than pass pro. You'd think they could just tell them just freaking kill the guy and just have them just unleash their big physical guys on some of these other teams that just don't have that pedigree of player.
They talk about how big Caden Proctor is and how much of a man mover he is.
I mean, all these dudes are big athletes.
I think it's just the defenses know. I mean, Sark talked about that. He said they needed to go in and stop the run game. I just don't think defenses are scared of Milroe at all. So if all you have to do is key in on the running backs. And I think we were all kind of fooled. I don't think Jace McClellan's it, obviously. I don't think they have a special back there right now.
And Justice Haynes has been injured, right? He's not. He is not.
He was. He's back now. Saban said today that he thinks that Jam and Haynes are going to play a role at some point this season. He specifically named both those guys, which I thought was interesting. Roydell ran a bunch last week too. I mean, I just think they're trying to grasp at something and see what works, and I think Saban will roll whoever through there until it happens.
Well, it's going to be a loaded slate on Saturday. Again, start your Saturday morning with, what? We got through this whole show, and I didn't mention anything about Thomas Castellanos and being one of my shoot from deeps in last year's class, or the fact that UCF basically laughed in me and Luke Probasco's face when we asked for an interview with Thomas Castellanos last year. They said, why? Well, I guess I'm not supposed to disclose what it is that they said. So I'll be professional for once. All right. That's our show for tonight. We're going to have Kirk Herbstreit on, but we ran out of time. So apologies to him. For Chris Moxley, Matt Bruning, and Austin Nace, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck.